Myself, Professor Hardika Meghani, and today we will be learning something about Python programming. The concept of Python programming that we will be going through today is with this video functions in Python programming. So, which are the topics that would be covered throughout? Introduction to the functions in Python, creation and the calling of the functions, arguments in the functions, number of arguments in the functions, arbitrary arguments in the functions, keyword arguments in the functions, arbitrary keyword arguments in the functions, default parameters, passing the whole list as an argument, and the return values. So before moving to the functions, how we create the functions, we must know something about what functions are. So basically functions are a block of program or a block of code that are being created so that they can repetitively used. It helps you to develop a modularity in your lengthy programs. Suppose that you are writing a code and it has grown larger and larger, where you are repetitively writing few line of code to perform a certain task. So that can be placed into the function, and that function can be called as and when required while performing the task. So functions are of two types, predefined and user defined. So the print function that we use in the Python, we can tell that it is a predefined or a built-in function that is knowing the task that is to be performed. Now suppose I want to create a function that performs the task that I want. So what is the syntax for the same? So the syntax for the user defined function is def function name into the brackets the parameters, then colon, and then indenting after indentation. Make sure in Python the indentation error arrives the most, as it is the case sensitive. It requires proper indentation. Then we place the required statements after indenting into the function name. The keyword definition, the keyword def, is being used to mark the header of the function. The function name should be uniquely identifiable, and the rules for creating the function name are same as the rules for the identifiers in the Python. The parameters or the arguments which we pass in the function to give certain value to the function while performing certain tasks, but they are totally optional. You need to place the colon at the end of the header to mark the end of the header. One or more valid Python statements can be placed inside the definition of the function. Just the thing, they all must have a same indentation level. We have a return statement also, but that is also optional. As and when required, we can use the return statement. So now coming to the creation and calling of the function. In Python, the def word is used. So here what we have done, we have used the def word, created a function named myFunction, and closed the parenthesis without any argument. What we are doing in this myFunction, we are writing a print statement that states, hello, this is the new function. Now this is how I defined the function. I created the function. What about calling? So we can call the function simply by its name and the parentheses that are the round bracket. Let's understand with the example, practical example. Here we are using online compiler. You can use any online compiler, or you can also install the Python and use it with any of the IDEs required in your systems. So first of all, let's define the function. So the function header is created, df my function, round brackets and colon. What to perform in the function? Print hello, this is my new function. Now I want to call it, so I'll use just the function name and round brackets. Let's try and run. See, you can see the function was called and whatever was the print statement got printed in the output. We could have also given one more statement. So whatever we write into the definition of the function will be executed in the program. So this is how you create and call the function in Python. Now the arguments in the function. So what are arguments? Arguments are basically a way to pass the information into the function. So arguments, after giving the function name into the round brackets that are the parentheses, we place the arguments. We can place as many arguments as we want. We just need to separate it by the comma. So here in the example, we have taken one argument, that is college, and we are trying to print the college name. Let's perform it. So this is our function. We are giving it an argument named college, and we want to print the college name. So this college will be replaced by the argument that is passed. Once I give the argument, I need to place that argument in the function call also. I have to give some values while I am calling the function. Let's see. So I passed the value assoit in the calling. That assoit was given to the college variable, and that variable got printed inside the function definition. Let's take one more example. Let's run it. So as many times as the function is called, whatever argument is there in the respective function call, that gets executed while we get the final output. So now moving towards the number of arguments in the function. So if we have specified certain number of arguments, in the previous example we saw there was one argument. Suppose I take two arguments, then I need to pass exactly the same amount of arguments that are written into the definition. Neither more nor less is acceptable. See, something like this. I have taken one more argument, that is university. So we have two arguments to be replaced in the print statement. One is college, another is university. Now I'm passing two arguments from here and let's run it. So see, this is how SOU and SOIT got replaced with the college and university respectively. Now in this case, supposingly, I remove this SOU, then what would be the output? It will throw me an error that you haven't placed any data for the positional argument of university. One argument is missing into it. So it cannot process what is to be placed over here. Thus, we cannot have lesser number of arguments. Now, if I have more number of arguments, still it will throw the error that it is having more than the required arguments. So, how many number of arguments are there in the definition? We need to be very specific with that count so that we can get the required output. The number of arguments passed in the definition should be same as the number of arguments that are to be passed in the function calling. See, if you pass lesser arguments, then also there is error. I showed you if you pass more than the required arguments, then also it will show the error. So what to do in the case when you don't know how many arguments will be passed into the function? So in such case, we come across the concept of arbitrary arguments. What are arbitrary arguments? Arbitrary arguments are passed in the function when you don't know how many exactly the arguments will be passed. So how we can do that? We can place just a star or an asterisk before the name of the argument. Let's understand this through the example. Here we'll change the example slightly. From college and university, we'll go to the child. Supposingly, I give star child. And over here, I say that I don't know how many arguments will be passed. I don't know how many arguments will be passed, but I know that whichever argument is passed on the index 2, that is 0, 1, 3, 0, 1, 2, out of 3, whichever is on the 0, 1, 2, that is the third one, is the youngest child. So I'll be giving names over here. And run. So the youngest child is George. Here coincidentally there are 3 names and the youngest one was the third one. Suppose I have 4th name also. Still the youngest child would remain George because we have specified child at the index of 2. So this is index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2. Now suppose I remove, then and then it will throw the error because when I pass the multiple arguments over here, it acts as a tuple. That's why it gives each and every item a certain index value starting from 0. So it will tell you that the tuple is out of bound. That means the data that is to be fetched in the function is missing in the tuple. So here you just need to be sure that the required amount of data is there in the tuple. It doesn't uh, give any importance to how much data is there. Just the required data should be there into the tuple. Even if I give the 5 arguments, still it will take its required data only from the tuple. So number of arguments doesn't matter, just the required data should be there into the tuple. And this way I can create my arbitrary argument function. Now coming to the keyword argument. Here we had to maintain the sequence. Whichever is the child on the third index, that is index number 2, 0, 1, 2, third index, is to be considered as the youngest child. Supposingly while creating the tuple, there is a change in the listing of the names. So instead of George, Bob becomes my youngest child. So in this case, when Bob becomes the youngest child, the answer becomes incorrect. So how to maintain the answer without having a particular order? So we come to the keyword arguments with it, where the key is connected with the value. So then irrespective of where you place your particular answer into the argument, it will specifically pick the values as per the keyword. That means we have 3 keywords: child 1, child 2 is the second key, child 3 is the third key, and I say that child 3, the key that is having the value child 3, is the youngest one. So irrespective of the placement, we are removing this. So we have the sequence in the calling child 1, child 3, child 2, but we have argument sequence as child 1, child 2, child 3. Still, it will match the values as per the key's name. So we get the correct answer that the youngest child is George. I hope this keyword arguments would be clear, that you do not need to maintain the order while we are going with the keyword arguments. Now again in the keyword arguments, if we are working with some data where we don't know how many arguments will come to us, we have asked the person to enter the full name. Now few would just enter their first name, few would enter first name and last name, few would enter first name, last name, middle name. So we don't know what type of data exactly they would send. So in such case, what we do, we create arbitrary keyword argument where we don't fix the keywords in the definition. Because if we fix the number of keywords in the definition, we need to pass that many keywords in the function call. So instead, we don't fix the keywords argument into the definition. We put 2 asterisk mark, and then that argument behaves as a list. That means it is accepting the keywords in the, that argument behaves as a dictionary argument. That means it is accepting the arguments in the form of the dictionary data type. Let's perform it. Supposingly we are working with the student example now, that the student needs to give the name, and we only want the last name of the student. So what we will do, we'll write here student and into the square brackets, we'll specify the keyword that we are finding out, that is L name. So whichever value will be passed in the L name will be accepted and printed in the output. Irrespective of the sequence that is into the function call. It will just focus on the key names. Now let's run it. So it found that the last name of the student is Williams. So this is how it accepts the whole dictionary into the argument and it gives us our required value into the output. So these are arbitrary keyword arguments. Now coming to the default parameter, that sometimes if the user forgets to pass certain data into the function call, then what should be the default value that is to be considered? Here we are giving the value in the university is equal to SOU. That if no university name is mentioned while calling, consider it by default as SOU. Now in the function call, suppose here I give GTU, I give GU. Suppose here I don't give any argument. So in the first one, the output will be GTU. Second, the output would be GU. Third, as there is no argument, if I won't have given this default argument, see what the output would have been. There would be the error while processing the third function call. So my processing of the function would have stopped. Instead, if I have given certain default argument in this, then in such case, it will take the default argument in the third function call where no argument is been placed. So this is how the default parameter or the default arguments work into the function. Now we saw that we could pass when there was arbitrary argument, we could have passed the whole tuple. When there was arbitrary keyword argument, we were able to pass the whole dictionary. So similarly, we can also pass the whole list into an argument. So this is how it works. Supposingly, I just copy this program. And we will have it over here. I have taken a function, my function, with the university name, where there is a for loop that will iterate through the list that would be passed in this university. We have taken a list with the university names, and here in the function call, we have just passed that list. So this list will be replaced with this university and it would be executed inside the function during the function call. So the list has been executed as per the for loop. So this is simply how we can pass the whole list also into the function as an argument. So the last topic that we will be covering is returning the values. Till now we were seeing that whatever we were performing, it was with a print statement or something. Suppose we want to return certain value. It is not to be printed exactly into the function itself. The value is to be returned to the function call from where it was originated. Then we have the return values also, return keyword. The return statements are optional. Over here, suppose I want to create a table of 5 using the return statement. So this whole program is specified for that. As the other languages, we do not need to mention any return type while we are defining our function. While defining our user defined function, we do not need any return type to be predefined, that what type of data would be returned. Our table is from 1 to 10, so we'll go from 1 to 11 as it takes the range in the -1. So what I have done, I have created my function where I'll be taking one argument, multiplying that argument with the 5, and whatever value comes, I'm returning. When I return, it will go to the function call. So the function is getting called inside this for loop where this I from the range has been passed. That value is given to the x, and then the x calculates and gives the particular value to the x in the function call. And then whatever values come, it will be printed over here. So my loop one by one gave the value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whatever was the respective value, the return statement performed the calculation and gave to the x over here, and that x was printed into the print function, that is this 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and so on till 50, because our loop was iterating from 1 to 10. So this is how the return function works. And with this, the briefing of the functions is over. I guess you might be now clear with the concepts of the function. What is function? How we create the function? How the different arguments are placed into the function, where we need to take care of the number of arguments, else we might get the error. Arbitrary arguments, where we don't know how many arguments will be passed by the user. Keyword arguments, where we don't know which sequence of the arguments will be passed by the user. Arbitrary keyword arguments. Default parameter, passing the whole list as an argument, and returning the values to the functions. Thank you so much, student. Hope you are clear with the topic. Thank you.